Today is March 7th, 2011, and we're here with Dr. Warren. He has several degrees, and he is the director of the Bioethics Center at Tuskegee University. First of all, could you tell us the full name and the intention of the Tuskegee University Bioethics Center?
Yes. The full name for the Bioethics Center is the Tuskegee University National, and I emphasize National Bioethics Center in Research and Healthcare.
And are there other parts of the center or programs within the center throughout the U.S.?
Not connected with Tuskegee University, but there are other bioethics centers that have been ongoing for several years, and most recently funded by the National Institutes of Health.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, I understand that this particular center was partly developed in response to the presidential apology to the people that were targeted by the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
Yes, this center was actually mandated by President Clinton in 1997 as a part of a presidential apology to the U.S. Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee. And he mandated this center as well as a museum to continue the legacy that occurred and to prevent such atrocities from occurring again.
Can you tell us if there's any survivors of this experiment?
At this time, all the survivors, all the men, have passed.
I understand, if I remember this correctly, were there also people that were infected as a result of the direct experimentees being infected, their partners?
That we don't know. There's some evidence, but to speak to that specifically, I would rather not.
Okay.
We directed our attention to the men and their families.
Okay. Did they all die as a result of the experiment?
We don't know for sure. Some of them has from other causes. And so again, that's more of a scientific question that more opinion than facts.
Okay. Can you tell us what value does an apology by the U.S. President at the time, President Clinton, carry?
An apology from the president, the highest official in the country, sends a very strong message to the nation that what the country did was wrong, morally wrong, and we want to recognize that error and make the appropriate corrections.
Okay. When I was reading on the site for this center, I was reading about addressing some of the damage to the public psyche. So could you tell us what has been some of the damage to the public psyche?
In my view, the loss of trust in an institution that's supposed to have the best interests of the nation at the forefront. So the fact that you've lost trust in the most important agency and the government agency allows and requires a lot of work to be done to restore that trust, particularly in the African American community, where there's been a history of wrongdoings on our behalf.
Now, I understand that they have some training programs from the university for healthcare providers. I was wondering if you could tell us what could potentially be taught in those programs that may prevent more unethical and non-consensual human experimentation.
Well, we're really trying to launch the center's activities, and it's been around for 10 years, in 3 areas: research, education, and service. We believe that we've got to challenge the ethical, bioethical, public health ethical presuppositions that initiate the study. And then once we've done that research, to begin to teach what we've learned, and hopefully that translates into practice at the federal, state, and local level.
And what about internationally?
Of course, internationally as well. But an injustice globally is an injustice locally, and an injustice locally is an injustice globally.
Globally as well.
As well.
Yes, I would agree with that. I wanted to ask you, just how do you think that such activity could have, and in fact did, take place for so long, 4 entire decades, despite what I would consider to be most people's unwillingness to carry out such activity?
First, I think we must recognize that the exposure to what was going on did not occur in the scientific community. It was a reporter. So it seems to me that the notion of what is right goes beyond the realm of science. And what I think occurred is that in the interest of science, procedures and research was ongoing. And when we looked beyond that narrow scope of science, we found there was an injustice that needed to be corrected.
Could you tell us, potentially, I was wondering if some kind of sense of embarrassment of having made a mistake might be something that could have allowed this activity to go on for so long?
I think when we talk about embarrassment, that's at the individual level. And I think we have to talk more importantly about what was the intent at the systemic level. So until we fully understand what the intent was, then it's very difficult to even think about quote-unquote embarrassment. What was the intent by the U.S. Public Health Service to initiate the study, carry it on, and was that attempt realized?
I also wanted to ask you, there's an article in the Huntsville Times, and it addresses the Presidential Commission meeting that took place at the beginning of last week. And I was somewhat disappointed because in the article, although they made reference to a serious history of this type of activity, it seemed like they referred to events that happened quite some time ago. And I was wondering what you thought about the delay that seems to happen before the mainstream media will report on this type of activity, even though there's quite some time, even years in advance, that people are indicating and reporting that they're experiencing something going wrong in the system like this.
In my view, we spend a lot of time reacting to an error as opposed to thinking about the violations before it occurs. It's very different in responding to something that's gone wrong, in opposed to being more proactive. Doing no harm is not the same as doing good. So I think we need to spend more time on deciding how to do good, in opposed to preventing harm.
And finally, I wanted to ask you, I noticed when I was doing the research and looking for a video I would have liked to have seen of the actual apology by President Clinton on whitehouse.gov, the official White House website. I saw when I did a search in there that I could find some results for the Guatemala syphilis experiment apology, but not the apology with regard to Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Do you have any thoughts on that matter?
That apology is available in the public sector, so we can make it available to you, and I'm not sure why you couldn't access it.
Okay, and finally I wanted to ask you, actually, those are all my questions, but was there anything about the subject matter that you would like to add at this time?
Yeah, I think it's important to really begin to verify the intent. We're still unclear about what the intent was, and also to be clear that like no other place in the country, Tuskegee University was mandated to address this issue, and the Bioethics Center should continue with that mandate.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Warren, for meeting with us today and sharing some opinions about this. This is a difficult, complicated subject that most people do not have good expertise on, and this is something that you have a lot of experience with in your role in your research, and I really appreciate you coming to talk with us today.
Thank you very much.